Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you that don't know, my name is Satchu Constantine. I'm thrilled to welcome all to this special panel discussion featuring the top three finalists for the 2025 Dr. Espanola Jackson Energy Justice Award. Dr. Espanola Jackson was a tireless community and environmental justice leader based out of San Francisco here in the Bay Area. And this award is to honor her legacy, recognizing leaders who have made significant strides in advancing environmental justice and clean energy in their communities. Dr. Jackson's journey in clean energy was characterized by a deep understanding of the interconnection of social and environmental issues, and the leaders that you'll be hearing from today have exhibited that same sense of understanding throughout their outstanding careers. Just a note, in uncertain political times like these, when our industry and movement face mounting pressures from shifting policies in Washington, the work of environmental justice leaders and organizations becomes even more apparent, more crucial. The current landscape reminds us that progress isn't always linear, something we were talking about as we got ready for this, and that grassroots leadership at the community level often provides the stability and continuity that our movement needs to weather these kinds of political storms, the pendulum swings. Here at Vote Solar, we hold our values close to our work, and that's one of the reasons that this award is so important to us. We believe that this award and the nominees exemplify those values: trust, authenticity, versatility, compassion, and inclusivity. Today, we work towards a clean energy future alongside organizations that brought us the brilliant partners like you see here and that you'll meet in just a moment. These are leaders who show up for the journey to that clean energy future authentically, committing to honesty and transparency in their work. And you'll soon notice that they're all from different regions of the country. Their work reaches across the intersection between social justice and environmentalism, from different career fields and geographically different, showcasing how versatile the path towards environmental justice can be, keeping those communities, all of our communities, in the forefront. These nominees bring inclusivity to every room they enter, knowing that everybody deserves a seat at the table. They lead with compassion, and they earn the crucial trust of impacted community members. The nominees that we've chosen here embody all of the characteristics that we at Vote Solar value, and also reflecting on the leadership of Dr. Jackson as we are honoring her today. Today, we do have the additional honor and privilege of hearing from three amazing individuals who have been chosen out of a just as remarkable group of nominees. Each finalist has demonstrated exceptional leadership and a deep commitment to creating a more just, clean, and equitable future. Before we dive into that conversation, I do want to take a moment to thank you, the nominees, and everyone who participated in the selection process to bring you to us. Your dedication and energy for energy justice makes a real difference. We will have time just for the audience. We will have time for Q&A at the end, so please feel free to use the chat function for your questions, and we'll try to incorporate them as we get into the conversations. And just before we actually get started with messages from our nominees, we have a message from last year's winner, the 2024 winner, Nkwanda Ja, and we will queue up a video here, and then we'll come back.
My name is Nkwanda Ja. I am the Executive Director for the Cultural Arts Coalition, co-founder 44 years ago, and I am the chair of the Alachua County branch of the NAACP's Environmental and Climate Justice Committee. When I got involved with it, I really didn't know what I was getting involved with. I just felt like I was supposed to be working on environmental issues. So for decades, I have been attending meetings, and in the last 15 years or so, I really felt even more of an obligation to learn more about taking care of the environment and sharing that knowledge with my community. because I was new to it when they said cleaner energy, I didn't pick up that in it. So about 4 years ago, we did a countywide, when I said we, the NAACP's Environmental and Climate Justice Committee did a countywide discussion about moving towards 100% clean energy. I want to be clear about that. Not cleaner, but 100% clean energy. And the fact that we live in Florida, the Sunshine State, we have targeted three communities here in Gainesville where energy bills, utility bills are extremely high, and the incomes of the people who live in those areas are low. They're fixed incomes. We're also working with Alachua County to use use a municipal building that they own to put solar onto those buildings, and the savings from putting the solar on those buildings will go into a fund to further help the cause of weatherization or the need for weatherization. So it's helping I'm very proud that it is helping my community and helping those that need it the most, and we're saving energy. To me, it works out really good in that by weatherizing homes, we're saving residents money on their utility bills. And also, to me, even more importantly, is that we're not using as much energy. So it's a win-win kind of thing. I think sharing what I learned about the community is the best part for me. The second best part is having had the opportunity to work with teenagers every summer for the past 30, almost 35 years, to impart to them how important it is to take some responsibility for doing good things for the earth. That excites me, that I can get my kids out to do that, my teenagers out to do that, and then they can teach their children. And I'm on my second generation of youth that I work with.
Inspiring as ever. Anybody that can get teenagers out doing things, I have some respect and admiration for. All right, so let's take a minute now and meet the finalists for this year. So please join me in welcoming Chief Henry Red Cloud, who's the founder and executive director for Red Cloud Renewables. Welcome, Chief Red Cloud. Tarshir Battle, who's the executive director for Roots to Empower. Welcome, Tarshir. And Briante McCorkle, who's the executive director for the Georgia Conservation Voters. Welcome, Briante. Thank you all for being here. So we're going to hear from each of you, each of the nominees, about the critical work that you're doing and bringing clean energy to your communities. First up, we have Chief Henry Red Cloud. Chief Red Cloud, if you are ready, please take it away.
Well, greetings, one and all. Very happy to be a nominee for the
Energy Justice Award.
Energy Justice Award. Really happy to be here. We're based over here in the southwest corner of South Dakota. I started solar back in 1997. 2003, we opened the doors to Red Cloud Renewable as a training annex. And currently there's 574 federally recognized tribes. We're working with 70 of them on their clean energy projects, creating a workforce. So we're training people on three pillars that we offer here. First and foremost is solar. We're giving them a new tool for their tool belt. We had over 1,400 students attend thus far since our existence in 2003. And the other thing that we do here is energy efficiency. We work with the tribes and train them to be energy auditors with applied weatherization. Uh, and the final thing that we do is we build tiny homes using two concepts. The very first one is earthen block, compressed earthen block, and the other is cellular concrete. Some people call it cellcrete, but we've been doing this and we've been having a great time here. We're located on the home of the Oglala Lakota Nation. We're one of the 574 federally recognized tribes. I'm a fifth direct descendant of Machbialuta, Chief Red Cloud of the Oglalas. So we're taking his vision to the next steps and bringing workforce development to. We're wanting to work with 574 federally recognized tribes. So that's pretty much what we do here. Been very having students come here, stay on site, do a 80-hour course. The first week is classroom time. Then the following week we have lab leading up to a community install. So I found that building the awareness to train people and then build awareness in these rural communities. We stretch from across the country. We have a lot of people from the Dene Nation, the Navajo Nation coming here. As we all know, they're pretty much in the boat we are in. Some people here in the 21st century, we don't have electricity. And to teach this skill to people within their respected communities to do the installs as well as the O&M, the operation maintenance, and further on to look towards looking towards working within their respected areas, but also within the Texas is having a boom in solar right now. So a lot of the students are starting to travel down south and start to put their expertise to work. Oh, that's what we do here at the RedCloudRenewable.org campus. Please visit our site, find out what we're doing and how you can get involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Red Cloud. And I love it when seeking one goal, workforce training, can also help another. Awareness about clean energy and awareness about energy. It's amazing when we see how these good efforts can build on each other. Let's move on to Tarshir Battle. Tarshir, the floor is yours. We'll get back into it.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Tashir, and I grew up in the city of Boston. And I'm going to just bring mine to my lived experience, right, of growing up in the inner city. Basically, I grew up with a single mom. At times, we couldn't afford oil for our tank. So back in the day, and still some places still heat with oil, and we had to rely on our gas stove to provide that heat. So sometimes I would find myself sitting in the kitchen with stove door propped open with my feet up, preparing for school that way, reading my school books. That's how we would heat the house, which is, think about it, it's kind of dangerous having a gas stove running 24/7 when you don't have money to actually put oil in the tank. And so that experience, not just that experience, but other experiences of living in an area with blight, urban blight, disenfranchisement, homelessness during the 1990s. When I grew up, a lot of crack epidemic going on. It made me want to address issues around certain things like homelessness, drug addiction, housing insecurity, and then now all those intersections with having heat and electricity and all that stuff. I mean, when the chief just brought up certain areas don't have electricity, that sparked the light to go off. Like, why don't we have electricity in other areas in the United States at this time, which is kind of unheard of, considering we're a developed nation, right? But those type of things spurred my interest to help and all these intersections, including energy justice. And so I started my organization with the goal of helping formerly incarcerated folks um, to start their own businesses. But since then, it has expanded my organization to touch like energy justice, also, work as well, climate change, and educating youth to work in the environment, as well as community conversations with adults. So it's like an intergenerational thing. And I think that addressing or looking at it through intersectional lens is very important, not just looking at one section because they all are important to address to make a healthy kind of community. And so that's basically the kind of work that I do. So community conversations, educating the youth around in summer programs and providing stipends for that. That motivates people to want to join in the work as well, like rewarding people for their time. If you're having community conversations, you want to award people for their time to be present, to make sure that they have childcare to attend or make sure that there's food available when they're attending. Some people have to come, they come into our community conversations to give their input, but a lot of times they're not going home. And so making sure that they have food present, like we have food present there for them as well. So that's basically who I am and the work that I do. I'm not trying to take a lot of time.
We're here for you to take up time this year. This
But
is
yeah,
your time.
yeah, I'm just gonna, I mean, I'm just gonna, as part of this journey in terms of this competition, I also am going to learn from the other three that are presenting. And so also I'm going to treat this as a learning experience as well. So I will also like to just tune in and listen to my fellow cohort.
Oh, thank you, Tashir. And I think the moment we stop learning is the moment we start heading downhill. There's always room to learn something new, and this is a great place to learn and inspiring stories. So thank you. So finally, Briante McCorkle. Briante, if you want to share a bit about your work with us, and then we'll get into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really is an honor to be a finalist and to be a finalist with everybody else. I was reading about all the great work that people are doing. And it's just a reminder that none of us are existing in a vacuum and we're all just, different parts of the movement in our little corners of the world. And so I'll tell you about the corner of the world that I came from. So I'm a military brat and I also identify as Black American. I think that's really important because those two things were really formative for me in growing up. I was raised to believe in the power of democracy to improve people's lives because of those identities. I grew up on an Air Force base. I was actually out in California in the Mojave Desert. But we were this little microcosm of, it was a very diverse cross section of America because it was a military base in the middle of nowhere. And so I feel like that's what really solidified like my, patriotism, like the wanting to be involved in democracy, and then just being a Black American, you hear about the legacy of the civil rights and the movement builders that allowed Black people to go from, living lives that were very oppressive to the lives that we're able to live today, even though we still have more to go. But that legacy of people coming together to really fight to improve conditions. So the two things really, I feel have been really formative for me in the work that I do now. I moved to Georgia when I was 10, so that's how I made my way to the South. But when I trace my family's history back all the way to 1870, and I'll let you figure out why that's as far back as I could get. When I got to 1870, we were in North Carolina, so it really, feels like being here in the Southeast doing this work is really important. And so I moved from Middle Georgia, where we got stationed, up to Atlanta for college. I attended Georgia State University, and I thought I was going to be a nursing major. I was like going to stick needles in people and make 6 figures a year. That was the plan. And then I got off track, I took a public policy class and I started learning about all the issues impacting people. And specifically, climate change really stood out to me because it felt like a solvable problem. It was like, okay, we're just burning, too much. We're putting too many emissions in the air. Let's stop doing that. It seemed so straightforward when I was, young and naive and in college. And then I got out into the world and started learning about all the different things that it would take to actually solve climate change. But I really saw the intersection of race, poverty, and climate very, very clearly the deeper that I got into it. It's definitely a democracy issue. It's a health issue and it's a survival issue. And that's really clear to me and became clear to me in the work that I did. My first big organizing victory. I do like to tell this story because it's really what made the work that I do now click, because you can do anything in the world of climate and environment, but organizing and that movement building, that power building work really stood out to me. I was a younger person working for the Sierra Club at Georgia chapter, and we took on a transit campaign to expand MARTA, our transit authority, into Clayton County, which is just south of Fulton and DeKalb County, where the city of Atlanta sits. And so it's actually got the airport in the top corner. So a lot of people have actually passed through Clayton County, but they didn't have transit access. And they basically there was a county commission nobody really knew about, and it was they had the power to put this referendum on the ballot. But everybody in the county, even though they knew they needed transit, they didn't know that there was this commission that existed, and they didn't know that there was a state law that all they had to do was get that commission to let them vote on it. So it was really important because I got there and I was an environmental advocate, and I'm like, oh, let's expand transit options. We need to reduce dependence on oil. Like, let's lower carbon emissions, and learn very quickly like that is not what people connected with. It's really important to note that people do want clean air. They do want to see action on climate. But what they needed to do was to get to work, to get to school, to be able to shop at a grocery store that wasn't a convenience store that they could walk to. People were, missing probation appointments. I mean, it was about their lived experience and their quality of life. And so being able to have conversations with them about that up front, and then connecting the dots with the climate and the democracy and the policy issues really was something that really cemented the work that I do as an organizer. That victory was really hard fought for, but I took those lessons with me and I applied them to all of my work. Yes, I care about policy. Yes, I care about, putting pressure on decision makers. But none of that matters if we're not meeting people where they're at and talking about the issues in the way that they are experiencing them. So growing up, my grandma was always saying to me, turn off the lights or we will be sitting in the dark. And at the time, I didn't understand what she was saying. I'm a kid. I'm like, man, it's not that big of a deal. But what she was talking about was energy burden. She was talking about the fact that she could not afford that power bill, especially if it kept going up. And she was feeling the squeeze between power and food and rent and all of the things she had to pay for. And this little thing, the power bill, just keeping the lights off and conserving energy was just something that she could do to try to ease that burden. And so I really feel like I'm honoring my grandma and the work that I do now, leading Georgia conservation voters. What we do is we focus a lot on climate and energy democracy. It's really important that we're doing this work right now because we are in an energy crisis. And it's not just because of climate change, but it's because of AI, artificial intelligence, and its rapid growth. It's driving driving a data center boom. And it's actually forcing a public conversation in a very real way about where does our energy come from, who pays for it, and who profits from it, and who bears the costs. And so Georgia, we've always been focused, at least in the environmental community, on energy because it's really one of our best options for reducing our carbon emissions. And it's always been important for environmental justice because Georgia has had some of the most polluting power plants in the country. We've got coal ash ponds, nuclear facilities. All of this is cited in Black and rural communities that have been fighting and pushing back against this type of dirty power infrastructure for a very long time. And so now the data centers are bringing even more voices into this conversation about what kinds of energy choices are we actually investing in, but also, again, what is the impact on affordability? Can we actually afford to build this out? Who picks up that cost? Here in our state, our power company raised rates 5 times in 5 years. It raised bills by over $500 a year, and that is a very low estimate for some communities that are living in housing that's not efficient, have big households, so on, so on. So we know that people are really paying a lot of money. But here we have the opportunity to put pressure on the Georgia Public Service Commission. And that's exactly what I've spent all year focused on doing. And we had a major victory in November where we led a multi-year campaign that was full of legal challenges. Like we were suing people, we were telling stories, we were in the media, we were doing videos, we were on social media. Of course, we were organizing, doing in-person workshops all throughout the state, working in coalitions and doing all of the policy work at the commission that we could do. But all of this really culminated in people turning out to vote because finally they were connecting the dots between this public service commission that they get to vote in and the actual cost of their power bill, which hits their kitchen table every month. And so I'm just really, oh, and I will say that Georgians elected Dr. Alicia Johnson, who is the second Black woman ever elected statewide in Georgia history. So, we also elected Peter Hubbard, but Alicia Johnson, second Black woman ever. So history making, it was super epic, and I'm glad to have just played a role, but I am very committed to continuing the legacy of Dr. Jackson because the work on energy justice is definitely community led and community centered, and we won't be making progress on climate if we're not also making progress on the humans that live on with the humans that live on this planet. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Briante. So that was great, all three of you. Thank you so much. And let's move in to make this more of a panel discussion. I know it's hard in the video environment, but we're also going to try to share some questions from the audience. As we head into that, I just want to note a couple of themes that were pretty consistent throughout. One is that all of this work is happening against the backdrop of energy burden or lack of access to clean, modern, safe, affordable energy. That's a big factor. I did also hear, the importance of community and the importance of the communities that we come out of and being connected to them, and whether it's individuals or others that are inspiring us or motivating us, and of course the intersectionality of all of these problems. One other thing I want to note is that Briante, I think something you said, and both Tashir and Chief Red Cloud are speaking to, is that this is a solvable problem. The problem itself has simple solutions. It's deploying those solutions that's hard for us because of political barriers or other barriers. So as we move into the conversation, there's several themes there to talk about. I want to talk a little bit more about the inspiration and the modeling that we have had, that you have had in coming to these achievements. So for us at Vote Solar, folks like Dr. Espanola Jackson, her legacy is still what informs and influences our approach. We work at the state level and below, keep an eye on the federal work, but really be connected to those communities. So that is someone individually who's affected our work. I wonder, for each of you, which experiences in particular or people have influenced your approach to energy justice. We've established how important energy justice is, but who do you model yourself after when you're in your day-to-day? And Chief Red Cloud, let me start with you. I think you already inferred some inspiration, but let me start with you since you started off the first part of the conversation.
Thank you. So yeah, out of the many tribes throughout the country, their base foundation around ceremony, song, dance, language is through the honoring of Ampetui Kawonia Wakan, the life-giving force of the sun, which gives life to all, evaporates water, creates the rains, does everything for us. We as indigenous people, we honor that. So it's taking this new way and honoring the old way and then becoming sustainable. I get my inspiration from my ancestors, my language, my song, my dance, my ceremony. That's where I get my inspiration. I look back at the history of indigenous people and how they went and practiced and what they did. They lived with the sun. They coexisted with the sun, coexisted with the earth. It's been a a healing place for them. And here in the 21st century, as things changed for us 160 years ago, it was life changing, where our way of life was no more. In fact, we couldn't practice our ceremony, our song, our dance, our language. It was forbidden. We couldn't do it. But those are the ancestors 160 years ago retained that. We're over here in the southwest corner of South Dakota. The whole state of South Dakota has less than 1 million people. So us being tucked away way over in the southwest corner, we have no interstate going by. We have our job rate. We're like 82% unemployed here. So that's why I mentioned earlier, taking this new way and honoring the old way and then becoming sustainable, creating a workforce, development. So I'm inspired by my grandmother, grandfather, great-grandmother, great-grandfather, and so forth, my great-great, and so forth, embracing our way of life, our ancient way of life.
It's a beautiful thing to have that connection through the generations. It really is. It's something that can sustain us all, and I really appreciate that the centrality of the sun in what you're talking about. Obviously, both solars.
Yeah, thank you, thank
you. Briante or Tashir, anything you'd like to add about how you model your approach?
I'll hop in, and so I will say the ancestors is such a great answer, because yeah, that's pretty much it. I you know I'm gonna be an ancestor one day, right? I have my daughter and my niece, and just all these kids that were, sorry, I'm getting that we're doing all this work for, because we're just not going to see the fruits of all of our labor. We're just not going to see it all. But just knowing that I can just do a little something to make things a little bit better for them in the generations to come is a really good thing. Because I know I'm the beneficiary of that myself, right? As I said earlier, being a Black American, you learn about the history, and you know that your life is improved because people put their lives on the lines, you know, in really serious and meaningful and deep ways many, many generations prior. So, I've always really been rooted in that timeline, right? Of knowing that there's always more progress to be made. I'm a moment in time. I am someone's ancestor, and hopefully they will appreciate the work that I'm doing, just like I appreciate the work of the people that came before me. But I will name specifically that I did move to Atlanta because I wanted to be a part of the civil rights legacy. And it was people like Martin Luther King and Zernona Clayton that really were from here that spoke to me. But just more broadly in the movement space at the time, revolutionaries like Angela Davis and like Shirley Chisholm, like those people, like, when I think about who I want to be remembered as, like, that's who comes to mind, because they were very bold, they were very visible, they all had their own different theories of change. I resonate with the peace, but I also resonate with the, let's bring it to them, So I have a little bit of both. So yeah, I'll pause there, but that's who I'm inspired by.
That's great. And you do not set a low bar for yourself, for sure, right? These are people who planted the trees under whose shade we now sit, and hopefully we can do that, passing it on to future generations. Tashir, anything from you?
Yeah, and so as I listen to both of my fellow cohort members, I mean, I hear her tearing up regarding like her, what the legacy of this earth will be in terms of who we leave behind as, as ancestors, right? And I can tell you right now, like, having conversations with the youth and other people in the community, um, a lot of people are hopeless. You know what I mean? Right now, a lot of people are hopeless at the plights that we're seeing in terms of climate change. Some people don't feel the need to get involved because they're just feel like that there's no hope at all, that there's nothing else they can do about it. And so that is kind of disheartening, listening to that, or even having that perspective that people are feeling that kind of despondentness. But I would also say that there's always hope if we're still here. And so don't get discouraged. That's my advice to Deontay when I heard her, because I felt it. So, anyways, um, I would say that definitely Martin Luther King. A lot of people think that, when they hear him, they always hear the unity part of his message, but he
Mhm.
also had other things that he was involved in. The Poor People's Campaign was one of them, which I happened to be involved in when it first kicked off here in Rhode Island, 2022, Moral Mondays. But before then, before his assassination, he was involved with organizing workers around, sanitation workers around the injustices and the fair conditions that they were in, wages, not fair wages, and then the unsafe conditions that they were living in. And so seeing that he was involved in other things, and a lot of people don't mention that when they're talking about Martin Luther King, as well as the reparations he was talking about in terms of land justice. I would say that he would be the person that I model myself after, for a lot of things, because I just mentioned a lot of things that he was involved in that people don't talk about. Those are the intersections that I'm talking about. So, like when we talk about climate change or renewable energy, we can't leave out these other things that impact people in their lives, and that would be housing, safe conditions, living wages, right? They're all things that are important to make a thriving community when we talk about things like that. And so that would be the legacy that I would say, or a model that I model myself after.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up, right? Because those less mentioned parts of someone like MLK's legacy are really important to remember, right? I mean, in some ways, he probably fomented more hatred for speaking out against the Vietnam War or against low wages than for other parts of his legacy. That's important to remember, this intersectionality. But I want to come back to something, and this is a question from an audience member, which I really appreciate. Um, Talking about hopelessness, talking about that emotion that we feel, right? And Briante, I could also hear that emotion in your voice, and this is an emotional thing that we were talking about even before the conversation started, about how we feel that in our day to day. And Chief Red Cloud, you mentioned being inspired by your people's language, songs, dances, the ceremonies. So the question is, um, how would you use art and music in what you do? And this can be for anyone in the group here, but what are ways that we can bring more joy and celebration through those art forms to the work that we do?
Thank you. Yes, here when we have our trainings, the very first thing we do is we offer song, ceremony, language. We talk to the students. We ask questions about their heritage, their culture, language. Then we share. We take that time to share as indigenous people. And once we start to share our ways, our customs, language, song, dance, ceremony, then we start to feel comfortable with one another. We really start to feel comfortable. Then we start to embrace one another. We find out where we come from, what's the status of our homeland, why we're here, and uh, first and foremost, we bring song. We bring beautiful songs in our throughout our classes. I'll just share just a little bit of one. Way ha ya, wello, hey, hey, hey. Way ha ya, wello, hey, hey, hey. Way ha ya, hey ya, oh, wello, hey, hey, hey. Way ha ya, ha ya. Way ha ya, hey ha ya, oh, wello, hey, oh. Very ancient songs. That one there honors the unity, bringing people together. That's one of the songs that we share. Thank you.
Thank you. Didn't know we were going to get a performance today. Thank you.
Um, I could go ahead. I would just say I'm an artist. I don't know if anybody knows that. I'm a visual artist. I do mixed media, and I have always incorporated art into all of the work that I do because I think that that's an outlet for people to kind of express themselves when words can't express. You always have that as a way of expressing yourself, whether it's through song, like the chief just did, or for, in my instance, visual art for folks. I incorporate that in the work that I do with the students as well as the work that I do in the community. Currently, I have an upcoming workshop with farmers here in our state, and incorporating art into this healing process that that they could use before the season starts. Considering all that's going on federally, I think that having an outlet helps balances out emotions. If you don't have that, then it just leads to burnout. It just leads to more um, anxiety and depression. People can't if they can't express themselves in some form, um, then it just leaves us to our own devices in our own head. You know what I mean? And so, especially in this work that we're doing, we need to have that balance to kind of uh, to express ourselves in some other way, um, so that we're not in our own head doing this work.
Art, can you mount?
I will just say that for me, I love art. I'm not gonna do a 360 with my computer, but I'm sitting in a room full of art right now. And it's all movement art. It's all like posters. You can kind of see this green one here, but that's a poster that was designed during the Clayton County MARTA campaign of Rosa Parks sitting on a bus. And so, that was resonant with the community. This right here behind me, this banner is actually from a march, a rally that we went to DC, and it wasn't my first rally, but it was one of my early rallies. Being out in the streets with people, and actually that's what I love about rallies is actually just going out and seeing the art that people produce, the different signs, the banners, the flyers. I mean, some people get in full on costume, which is a form of art, and I really want to also challenge what people think is art and what isn't, because I had to really go through that myself. I'm a very like word person. I like to read. I like to write. I'm not necessarily poetic, but I can produce some words on paper. And so I used to say to myself, well, I'm not particularly artistic, but in doing organizing, what you have to do is understand who people are and what they're good at and what they feel like they want to contribute to a movement, and that in itself is an art. Organizing is an art. Some people are artists with numbers and spreadsheets and graphs, and so I think we really need to broaden our ideas of what we think art is, and all the different applications of art. So I want to share that because it took a long time for me to start to stop saying that I wasn't an artist or that I wasn't creative. That I am. I just apply it in a different, maybe less visual way than other people. And I've also started to realize that speaking is a form of art. I speak a lot to community members. I try to understand who they are in the time that I have to pull on some heartstrings to motivate them, and that's art. So yeah, there's lots of different applications for art in the movement space, and whatever you contribute is beautiful and welcome.
Yeah, I think the fact that This Land Is Your Land is actually a protest song is often lost on people. A lot of the great art and the music that we see and hear around us came out of a struggle, came out of people trying to express something, right? The folk music that inspired environmentalists, along the rivers in New York, or anything like that. And I feel like revolutions, and this is a revolution, this transition needs two things. They need to travel on their stomach, and they need music to help them march along, right? So we got to make sure people are fed, but also feed that mind creative connection as well. We're getting some good questions in from the audience, and I really want to work them all in. I know we're just about halfway through the conversation right now. Maybe we can combine some of these questions here. So we've been talking about art and inspiration and meeting people where they are and how important that is. What are some techniques that you all have used to build the trust with the communities that you work with that is so important? The trust and the belief in what you do from your community. What has been the barrier that you've had to overcome in terms of trust in engaging with your work in your communities, and maybe if you could add in someone who's really inspired you in the way that they've built that trust.
Thank you. Yeah. So back in the early 90s, all of this renewable solar and all of this, unknowingly, we as human beings, we start to rebuild ourselves. Once we're in that, unknowingly, we're starting to rebuild ourselves. Then we're out there talking with, community folks and seeing them on their daily basis, going inside their home, visiting with them. And then all of a sudden you're an inspiration to them. And then unknowingly they start to rebuild themselves from the old, the middle age, especially the young folks, the teenagers, the young adults. They, unknowingly the whole thing starts to go into motion where people are starting to rebuild themselves, and then have that take that respect for you and the things that you do, and then wanting to get involved with you, wanting to unknowingly being rebuilding oneself, but wanting to get involved. What can we do? How can we do it? What can we do to get involved in what you're doing? So I encourage them to come join us, to come down, come over to our place, see our place, and see where they can fit in or how we can work together. What can we do for the betterment of the Oglala Lakota people? That's gaining that respect, to going to their ceremony, going to their whatever it may be, their gathering, a small powwow, a community powwow, going there, supporting, taking gifts, and it's our old way. As we met with other indigenous tribes, community members we haven't saw in a while, we sit down with them and we offer a gift. We tell them, you go ahead. This is what we say. Go ahead, and we're going to offer you this here solar install. Go ahead and utilize it and tell us how it works. But
trust and respect.
Through the moccasin telegraph, by the way, is faster than texting or the internet, and it's the best way. People spread the word. Spread the word. Now we got hundreds of solar warriors and warriorettes, and it's a tremendous thing on rebuilding oneself.
It's got to feel
it's
really
very
good.
important. You rebuild yourself, your family, your community, your tribe. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's got to feel good. And what I'm hearing you say is right. Trust and respect beget trust and respect. Have faith in your communities and in their ways, and that will be rewarded, and you can recruit them in. Anyone else want to come in here with some points?
I would say maybe because I've I'm gonna put an age to my, if I said I graduated in 1993 with my bachelor's, that would make me kind of close to 60. So I would say that after I graduated, most of the career that I've had, my major was in psychology. And then I went to get my master's in mental health counseling. And so I've always worked with individuals in the community on the ground level. So mental health, homelessness, people with homelessness, worked in the prison system, providing counseling, discharge planning, work with homeless veterans. And I would say that the most important thing to do when I do my work is to listen. And that's why I like to listen to when people talk now on this forum, is because I also want to hear what people are saying, to get the gist of like where they're coming from in their career, just the passion in what they're doing. So people want to be heard. So I would say first would be to listen, and it's how I build rapport, and then follow up with how could ways in which they could help out. Like after you listen to people, it's like, what way do you want to get involved in the work that we're doing? Like what way do you want to get engaged in the work to make this world a little bit better? So I guess that's how I approach my work in terms of community engagement. Um, the high school students are a little bit different. I would say they're a little bit different in terms of that, that style. Because even if I say, "How you want to get engaged," you might still get a blank stare.
Mm-hmm. I know I
But
do.
the old, but the, but I would say that the older, not the older, but the adults, they just want to be heard, and listened to, and respected. Because a lot of times when you say we want to, want them to have a seat at the table, right, or people to have a seat at the table, a lot of times they don't feel like they're heard. And so letting them ensure that they're actually heard by listening, is very important in the work.
Yeah.
I want to agree with that 1,000%. Listening, I wrote that down, and there. So I read a book, and there was a thing about people venting, and it was like, we all sometimes got to get a little vent out. Something's going on. We got to get it off the chest to someone that's willing to listen. And sometimes that's all we really need, is to just like get it out. And I think in the organizing space and the policy space, we tend to want to fix everything, like, so we're not really hearing what people say. We're coming with a solution that we've kind of cooked up, and we're like, here, this is the solution, but we're not really hearing them. And so, I just really want to emphasize 1,000%, you have to listen. And then when they're ready and they want it, then you can start to troubleshoot and offer solutions and offer support. And I want to say, that support can look a lot of different ways, but being consistent is important, continuing to show up. It can be, you know, one-on-ones, community events. Some of the best trust building I've ever done was sitting around someone's like kitchen table, like, and just talking to them for a long time. And that was a trust building exercise that multiplied. And then I will say also being honest, like, we don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. I really don't. I'm trying to move us in a certain direction, and then people will come to me and say, well, what about this and this other thing and this? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just as frustrated by it as you are. And I do hope we figure it out. But I think this is a step in the right direction, you know? So I think like being honest is super important, because otherwise people don't believe that, they believe you're trying to get something out of them. And I would say that's a barrier in work or in organizing, is like when people think that you're like there to get something out of them. People are tired of getting, being extracted from. So, listen, offer support, be there, be honest. And there was a question about what the barriers are, and I just want to say the other thing is like belief. A lot of people don't believe they have the power to change anything. And I would say that's like been the biggest thing, is trying to find all the stories and the wins, and whatever it takes to like show somebody that like change is possible, because they need to have that epiphany to act sometimes. But also somebody just challenged me on that, and they said they didn't need to believe to try to work for things to be better anyway, that they were going to do it anyway. So anyway, I just wanted to, those are just.
I mean, that's fair, right? There's an internal candle that guides us sometimes, but I do want to lift up that idea of belief that we can change things, and agency. And I think that's probably a good place to wrap up. There's a lot more stories I'd like to hear from the three of you. Just the things you've said so far have led me down. I've got lots of notes here that I want to follow up on. So I want to thank you all for joining the Fireside Chat. Thank you, nominees. And thank you, nominating committee. This is amazing. This was great to hear your stories and really understand what heroes you've been, right? That working in these everyday communities, getting transportation, teaching high school kids, teaching people a career. These are important everyday things that we do, but they build up and they're so important and so inspiring to give people that sense of hope, that sense of belief. So these nominations, I hope, is amplifying your work, and that we'll be able to share it across platforms, regions. We'll bring more people in, more people who believe in this path, in the path towards energy justice and a resilient, clean energy future. Thank you, Chief Red Cloud. Thank you, Briante. Thank you, Tashir. These stories are vital and important for us to hear. I think they really do reflect the legacy of Dr. Espanola Jackson. And for us at Vote Solar, you're embodying the values that we want to express into the world. So trust, authenticity, versatility, compassion, inclusivity. The landscapes are different right now. They're shifting underneath our feet. The fabric of society is being rent, but our communities are going to keep pushing forward. That pursuit of energy justice, the belief in that is urgent no matter what's happening at the national level. For those in the audience, I do want to say we need you to vote. There's a voting link in the chat, so don't forget to vote on our 2025 winner. And I encourage you all also to not just vote with your click here, but also bring these components of leadership, bring this knowledge of success and effort in all the different corners of our world to your own communities. There's a lot of resilience, a lot of determination that you've seen here in the stories, whether it's from their origins or in these uncertain times. So I hope you're inspired by that, just as we are. Again, please click on that link. And thank you all for being here and listening to our conversation. Thank you, nominees, for this lovely chat. And I hope I'll get to talk to each of you again soon. Everyone have a great rest of the day.